Hello and welcome to the first video in this beginner series for Vue JS. So this series has come about. Why am I doing this series? Well, over the past few years, one of the best web frameworks I've used and enjoyed using and also taught people to use it was Angular 1. And Angular 1, I think, is no longer officially supported by Google, which is a real shame in my opinion. I'll explain why. And now we have one of the most popular frameworks is now React, which maybe you've heard of. There's Angular 2 as well, which I think is having a little bit of a harder time. And there's quite a few others as well. And the problem with some of these newer frameworks that have come out is they're very, very difficult, I think, for somebody who's really starting from scratch. So let's say somebody who says, hey, I'd like to start making web applications. I've not really got any experience, etc. How do I go about it? Well, good luck using React or something, because it's very, very difficult. And there's an assumption of quite a lot of knowledge already. And that's because positively these frameworks are separating, are very much component based. So they're separating all of the things you write for your web app are separated into small manageable chunks, which makes large scale applications, testing them, etc. A lot easier and controllable. The problem is though, if you start as a beginner, things are very, very difficult to understand. You've got to do a lot of setup as well. So Angular 1 actually for me was the best of both worlds. It was quite modular, but it was also very, very easy to get into from the point of view of actually writing it and making a very simple app. The good news is that in recent years Vue JS has emerged and is becoming very, very popular. It's on its version 2 now, quite recently, and it's very, very similar to Angular 1. In fact, most of the functionality that you'll use for most simple apps in Angular 1 has been used again in Vue JS. It's also got a slightly better system for making components than Angular 1, which is good. But for real beginners, just jumping into making web apps quickly with a nice framework, Vue JS, in my opinion, is one of the best out there at the moment. Again, I'm talking particularly as well for beginners and people just wanting to get started. I don't want to create a row about web frameworks and things like this. So I thought in this series we'd make a web app in Vue. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to try and make it have some kind of half normal styling. I'm not a designer at all, as you know if you've watched any of my other videos, but we're actually going to use Vuetify. I'm on vuetify.js.com here, /components. So here I've got the lists up because I was just browsing it myself before making this video. But basically what Vuetify is, it supplies us already out of the box with all the components for styling. So I'll go to buttons, which is the most commonly known one. Here are various buttons with different themes and things. Very, very similar to Angular. So Google's material design, it's almost a replacement for Angular material that was used with Angular 1. I think is also available now for Angular 2. Very, very nice. A little bit tricky to get using, so I thought it would be nice to do a Vue app that also then has Vuetify built into it. And the other thing we're actually going to do, because we're feeling ambitious, is probably use some NVD3 charts in the app as well. So what will the final app look like? Well, it is meant for beginners, so it's not very, very complicated, but essentially I've made an API using the FIFA football player database from Kaggle. There was one on Kaggle. I think I took the top 20 countries from that database, and if you select a country and click the country, you get the top 10 players for that country with the badge representing the club they play for. You can toggle their age and overall ranking on and off with a button, and then if you click on that player you get an NVD3 graph with some of their details in a dialog, and you can close the dialog. The idea being that we're loading data from a JSON, we've got a select here, we've got a button here, we're opening a dialog, we're showing a graph. It kind of covers most of the basic stuff you'd want to do when you're starting to build a simple web application. So that's the idea of where we want to arrive in this series. Now going back to Vue JS, if you go to get started, there are lots of different ways. There's actually a command line tool for using, sorry, I was on the wrong page, an installation. I need to be using Vue JS. Where you do npm install. The good news is, in fact, a lot of tutorials I've seen do that, and it's the correct way of doing things, but you can also make a very lightweight Vue app just by including Vue.js inside a script tag in your index.html. And I saw them somewhere telling us how to do this. Here we are, direct script include. Development version and production version. Here you can just save it down and get the latest version inside and save it as a JavaScript file. And that's in fact what we're going to do. So because I'm aiming this at beginners, we're just going to concentrate on including the framework as a script in our index page, and we'll build this web app with these football players and their statistics on top of that. Okay, so I've gone on quite a long time in this video, so I just want to do a little bit more. I wanted actually to get started. You'll have as a download a starter.zip inside coming with this lesson, which is essentially this. I've got a folder where my app is based, and then I've got inside there, I've got an index.html, which you can see the code on the screen, a scripts folder. Inside there, I've got a framework folder where I've got the Vue already downloaded and saved, and then I've got an empty JavaScript file called scripts.js. And in the rest of this video, I just want us to quickly create the Vue app and print something to the screen, and that's us then done, and we'll start with more coding in the next video. So to run your Vue.js app, you'll need to run a web server on your computer. Now, there are lots of ways of doing this depending on what OS you're using. The simplest way, in my opinion, is just to use Python. It comes with a simple web server. It's called Simple Web Server or similar, that you can basically open a command prompt and then you can navigate, I have done here on Windows, to the directory. You'll need to install Python. If you're on Windows, you'll need to make sure that it's in your path. There are lots and lots of instructions online of how to do this, but you should be able to type Python-V from the console and see what your Python version is. I'm using Python 2 here, and then if I just type dir, I'm in the same folder where I've got my index.html, and I'm just going to type Python-m and simple HTTP server, and that'll now run in a web server from this folder, port 8000, serving on localhost. If I just go and change this localhost at the top here from 8001 to 8000, I get a blank page. I just do Control-Shift and I to open up the developer tools in Chrome. You'll find these in the different menus in Firefox or IE or something else. But we can see in the console that we've been told that we're running Vue in development mode because we've got the development code, not the production code of Vue. So I know that things have started up okay, there's no red text or anything wrong. So let's just to finish the video then, let's get going a little bit making our Vue app. The first thing I'm going to do is just quickly type a heading 2, I think, just something very quickly to make sure, convince myself that we're okay. I'll just type alive there to make sure we're alive and just go back to the web page and refresh here. And we are indeed alive, that's always good. And then now what we want to do is declare our Vue app. Now your Vue app will exist or attach itself to an element, and we're going to attach it to a div here, and we need to give our div an ID to tell Vue what the ID is of our element it's supposed to attach to. Now Vue will only attach itself to one element, so you can also use a class and attach it to a class, but if you've got lots of elements named with the same class, it'll attach it to the first one that it comes across. So in our case, I'll call this a simple app, like so a div with an ID of simple app. And I'll just put Vue app inside here. In fact, no, I'll leave this empty for now, this ID, like so. And what we want to do is we want to create our application, our Vue application, and attach it to this div here and show something on the screen, and then we're done. So to do that, we need to go into the JavaScript. I've got the scripts.js already included down here. And to make it with our Vue application, we're going to do a new Vue. And I'm going to go down here already because I get very confused with semicolons and brackets and things. And inside here, our Vue app is an object. So we'll make an object here with a set of keys. And throughout the series, we'll look at all the different keys that there are. But the main one is the element, to say what element we actually want to attach ourselves to. And I've forgotten what I've called it. I've called it ID simple app. So here we're saying, please attach yourself to simple app. And now I want to show something to the screen, and again we'll carry on with coding then in the next video. But the most important, well they're all important, but probably the most important property apart from the element is then the data one. So where all your data will be that you'll use to communicate with your web page, your web app, index.html. And this is again an object, and in here I'm just going to call this some text, and I need a beer I'll put again for my text here. So I've got I need a beer. So I've got my Vue app created here with this object. I'm saying attach yourself please to this element with this ID. And then Vue has a few standard properties that come inside the app. One of them is data, and this is data that we can then present in our index.html and also modify from our index.html. So what I want to do is I actually want to put this some text on the screen. And to do this, it's the same syntax actually as Angular 1. I just put the curly parentheses like this. I'm inside my Vue app element, the div here, put some text here, and then go back to the app and refresh. And now you can see that I have I need a beer on the screen. If I just flick back to Sublime Text and just put that instead down here and just go back to the website to have a look at what happens, I'll just get some text purely like this. The reason, hopefully it's clear to you, is because my Vue app has attached itself to this element here, and this text here is being written or is put inside index.html outside the element where the Vue app is existing. It doesn't know that some text exists. So that essentially is how our Vue app works. One more tiny thing we could do maybe is try and change some text just to show you maybe what's going on. And to do this, we will use something called a directive. We'll see lots more of these during the series. So if I make an input then, and for this input, I'm going to use something called a directive, which is understood by Vue here, this vModel. This vModel is saying the contents of this input to which piece of my data object should it attach itself. And in this case, I want it to attach itself to some text. So here I'm using the parenthesis here to actually go into data, find the key some text, and print the value of this. What I'm doing here with input with this vModel directive is saying, if I don't move that, is saying whatever's inside input, store that under the property some text, and by default that will go inside the data object. So I'll actually modify this. So what we should see is if I put something in here, it changes the text here. So just going back to the web page then, I'm just going to refresh. And now we've got an input, and you can see that I've said that my input will already be attached to some text, so it's already got the I need a beer. So if I just put hello in here, you can see the hello on the left hand side here is also changing itself. So a very nice way to go between the code that you've got behind for your application and then the actual stuff that you see in the front end of the web app. So it's called binding, a way to connect between the code and then the HTML. Very, very nice, very simple, and above all, very, very quick to get up and running. So that's it then for this video. I hope it's been clear. If it hasn't, then drop me a comment. You've seen from the finished app that we're going for that we've got quite a lot to do. It's not as much as you think. There's not actually that much code because the framework is really, really nice and really simple, and I repeat, very, very easy to get up to speed and going. The NVD3 graph might be different, but they're always a bit of a pain. But thanks very much for watching, and see you in the next video.